Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Scary Story channel. Tonight I want to talk about something primal, something that covers over 70% of our planet, yet we've explored less of it than we have the surface of the moon. I'm talking about water. The deep, dark, and often unforgiving water. Most of us have a healthy respect for the ocean or even a deep lake. We know its power. But what if I told you that sometimes the most terrifying bodies of water aren't the vast, open seas, but the small, isolated ones, the ones that feel wrong, the ones that seem to have a life and a hunger all their own. Our story tonight comes from a man named Leo, who spent a summer working as a caretaker for a remote lakeside property in northern Minnesota. It was supposed to be an idyllic gig, peace, quiet, and a free place to stay. The owner, a wealthy but eccentric old man, had only one rule, and he was very, very clear about it. Enjoy the cabin. Enjoy the woods, but for your own good, do not swim in the lake after sunset. Leo, being a rational young man, just nodded along. He figured it was some old wives' tale, or maybe the owner was just worried about liability. The first few weeks were perfect. He spent his days chopping wood, patching up the porch, and enjoying the sun. The lake was beautiful, crystal clear during the day, reflecting the endless blue sky. He swam in it every afternoon. The water was cold, crisp, and refreshing. He never felt anything strange, nothing out of place. He even laughed to himself about the old man's strange warning. But as the summer wore on, a subtle change began to take hold. Leo started noticing things. The birds, which were always chirping and flitting through the trees, would go completely silent an hour or so before dusk. The squirrels and chipmunks would vanish. The entire forest, which was usually buzzing with life, would fall into an unnerving, heavy silence. The only sound was the gentle lapping of the water against the shore. One particularly hot evening, Leo was sitting on the dock watching the sun dip below the tree line. The water, which was so clear just hours before, now looked like a pool of black ink. It didn't reflect the vibrant colors of the sunset. It just absorbed the light. He remembered the owner's warning, and for the first time, a genuine shiver ran down his spine. It wasn't from the evening chill. He decided to head inside, but as he stood up, he heard a sound. A soft splash out in the middle of the lake. He scanned the surface, but saw nothing. Just the still, black water. He thought maybe it was a fish, a big one, jumping for a fly. He waited, watching, but there were no more sounds. He dismissed it and went to bed. The next night, it happened again. This time, the splash was closer to the dock. It was followed by another and then another, moving progressively closer to where he stood. It sounded like something was methodically moving through the water, something large. He grabbed his high-powered flashlight and aimed the beam across the surface. Nothing. The beam cut a sharp, white path through the darkness, but the water revealed no secrets. No ripples, no animal, nothing. Just that unnerving, light-swallowing blackness. This became a nightly ritual. The sun would set, the woods would fall silent, and the splashing would begin. It always started in the center of the lake and moved closer to the dock. Leo grew obsessed. He spent his days searching online for local legends or news reports about the lake, but found nothing. He asked the cashier at the nearest general store, a woman who had lived in the area her whole life, if she knew anything strange about Blackwood Lake. She just gave him a tight-lipped smile and said, "Some places are best left alone, son." One evening, driven by a mixture of fear and frustration, Leo decided to test his luck. He thought, maybe it's just a beaver, or an otter playing tricks on him. He grabbed a handful of pebbles and stood at the end of the dock as the splashing started. He waited until a splash sounded only about 20 feet away, and then he threw a pebble right at the spot. The instant the pebble hit the water, the splashing stopped. The silence that followed was more terrifying than the sounds had been. It felt heavy, expectant. Leo held his breath, his heart hammering against his ribs. He swept his flashlight beam back and forth, faster and faster. Still nothing. He started to feel foolish, thinking he had scared off a simple animal. And then he saw it. It wasn't a ripple. It was a disturbance. Directly below the surface, where his pebble had landed, the water seemed to bulge upwards. not breaking the surface, but creating a smooth, dark mound about the size of a car hood. It rose slowly, silently, before just as slowly, sinking back down into the depths. Leo stumbled backward, his breath catching in his throat. That was no animal he had ever seen or read about. He ran back to the cabin, locked the door, and didn't sleep a wink that night. Every creak of the old house, every rustle of leaves outside made him jump. The next morning, he packed his bags. He couldn't stay there another night. As he was loading his car, the owner pulled up the long gravel driveway. He was an old man with pale, knowing eyes. He got out of his car and looked at Leo's packed bags, then at the lake, and then back at Leo. He didn't look surprised. He just sighed, a long, weary sound. "You heard it, didn't you?" he asked, his voice low. Leo, still shaken, could only nod. The old man walked to the edge of the water and stared down into it. "My grandfather built this cabin. He told my father the same thing I told you, and his father told him. This lake, it's old, older than the trees, and it gets hungry in the dark." He then told Leo a story that had been passed down through his family for generations, a story about something that lived in the lake, something that slept during the day but awoke at night to hunt. It didn't always need to eat, but it always needed to test, to see what was on its shore, to see if anything was foolish enough to enter its domain after the sun went down. The splashes were its way of luring things in, a macabre invitation. "Whatever it is," the old man finished, his gaze still fixed on the inky water, "it doesn't like being disturbed. It's a good thing you only threw a pebble. My great-uncle, when he was a boy, tried to be brave. He threw a large rock." The old man paused and looked at Leo with an expression of profound sadness. They found his clothes in a neat pile on the dock the next morning. Nothing else. Leo got in his car and drove away without looking back. He says that sometimes late at night when it's completely quiet, he can still hear it. That soft, methodical splashing getting closer and closer in the dark. He never found out what lives in that lake, and he hopes he never will. It just goes to show some warnings are given for a reason, and some bodies of water are best admired from a distance, especially when they turn dark. Thank you for listening. Remember to be careful out there. You never know what's lurking just beneath the surface. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Stay safe, and see you next time.